Shall we have a quiet meal at a club that has appeal?
Some good wine, a little brandy.
Leave the children with the nanny.
These new pastries are uncanny.
Shall we leave our cares behind? Take a moment to
A
unwind.
bit of pheasant is so pleasant.
The champagne is effervescent.
Have another almond crescent.
Mommy, Mommy, I'm hungry.
I know, dear. Mama's hungry too. Daddy will help us.
Mommy, Mommy, I'm good.
I know, dear. Mama's cold too. Daddy will help us.
See 'em dancing, thief and swine. See 'em prancing, swilling wine.
Mommy, Mommy, I'm hungry.
A bit of pheasant is so pleasant. Hear 'em singing,
With the nanny.
filthy bosses bragging over wins and losses.
Mommy, I'm cold. I know, dear.
See, we've been working all our lives, then the governors decide we're too old. They buy trinkets for their wives while we watch our children die from the cold. Damn them, damn them. They have turned us into beggars.
Wipe the smiles off their faces.
They have turned us into beggars.
Now they're down their hiding places.
They have turned us into beggars. They have turned us into beggars. Mommy, Mommy, I'm hungry.
What's the matter?
Presently, Stephen. Don't begin to read, Stephen. I shall require all your attention.
It was only while I was waiting.
Don't make excuses, Stephen. Now, I have not kept you waiting very long, I think.
Not at all, Mother.
Bring me my cushion. Sit down. Don't fiddle with your tie, Stephen. There is nothing the matter with it.
I beg your pardon.
Stephen, may I ask how soon you intend to realise that you are a grown-up man and that I am only a woman?
Only a woman?
Don't repeat my words, please. It is a most aggravating habit. You must learn to face life seriously, Stephen. I really cannot bear the whole burden of our family affairs any longer. You must advise me. You must assume the responsibility. Yes, you of course. You were 24 last June. You've been at Harrow and Cambridge. You've been to India and Japan. You must know a lot of things now, unless you have wasted your time most scandalously. Well, advise me.
I have thought sometimes that perhaps I ought, but really, Mother, I know so little about them. And what I do know is so painful. It is so impossible to mention some things to you.
I suppose you mean your father.
Yes.
My dear, we can't go on all our lives not mentioning him. Of course, you were quite right not to open the subject until I asked you to. But you are old enough now to be taken into my confidence and to help me to deal with him about the girls.
But the girls are all right. They are engaged.
Yes, I have made a very good match for Sarah. Charles Lomax will be a millionaire at 35, but that is 10 years ahead, and in the meantime his trustees cannot, under the terms of his father's will, allow him more than £800 a year.
But the will says also that if he increases his income by his own exertions, they may double the increase.
Charles Lomax's exertions are much more likely to decrease his income than to increase it. Sarah will have to find at least another £800 a year for the next 10 years, and even then they will be as poor as church mice. And what about Barbara? I thought Barbara was going to make the most brilliant career of all of you. And what does she do? Joins the Salvation Army, discharges her maid, lives on £1 a week, and walks in one evening with a professor of Greek whom she has picked up in the street, and who pretends to be a Salvationist and actually plays the big drum for her in public because he has fallen head over ears in love with her.
I was certainly rather taken aback when I heard they were engaged. Cousins is a very nice fellow, certainly. Nobody would ever guess that he was born in Australia, but...
Oh, Adolphus Cousins will make a very good husband. After all, nobody can say a word against Greek. It stamps a man at once as an educated gentleman, and my family, thank heaven, is not a pig-headed Tory one. We are Whigs and believe in liberty. Let snobbish people say what they please. Barbara shall marry, not the man they like, but the man I like.
What has all this got to do with my father?
My dear Stephen, where is the money to come from? It is easy enough for you and the other children to live on my income as long as we are in the same house. But I can't keep 4 families in 4 separate houses. You know how poor my father is. If he were not the Earl of Stevenage, he would have to give up society. He says naturally enough that it is absurd that he should be asked to provide for the children of a man who is rolling in money. You see, Stephen, your father must be fabulously wealthy because there is always a war going on somewhere.
You need not remind me of that, Mother. I have hardly ever opened a newspaper in my life without seeing our name in it. The undershaft torpedo, the undershaft quick firers, the undershaft cannons.
It is not only the cannons, but the war loans that his partner Lazarus arranges under cover of giving credit for the cannons. Those 2 men, Andrew Undershaft and Lazarus, positively have Europe under their thumbs. That is why your father is able to behave as he does. He is above the law.
He does not actually break the law.
Not break the law. He is always breaking the law. He broke the law when he was born. His parents were not married.
Mother, is that true?
Of course it's true. That was why we separated.
He married without letting you know this.
Oh no. To do Andrew justice, that was not the sort of thing he did. Besides, you know the undershaft motto, unashamed. Everybody knew.
But you said that was why you separated.
Yes, because he was not content with being a foundling himself. He wanted to disinherit you for another foundling. That was what I couldn't stand.
Do you mean for...
Don't stammer, Stephen. Speak distinctly.
But this is so frightful to me, Mother, to have to speak to you about such things.
It's not pleasant for me either, especially if you are still so childish that you must make it worse by a display of embarrassment. Now be a good boy, Stephen, and listen to me patiently. The Undershafts are descended from a foundling in the parish of St. Andrew Undershaft in the city. That was long ago, in the reign of James I. Well, this foundling was adopted by an armourer and gunmaker. In the course of time, the foundling succeeded to the business, and from some notion of gratitude or something, he adopted another foundling and left the business to him. And that foundling did the same. Ever since that, the cannon business has always been left to an adopted foundling named Andrew Undershaft.
I am afraid I should make a poor hand of managing a cannon foundry.
Nonsense. You could easily get a manager and pay him a salary.
My father evidently had no great opinion of my capacity.
Stuff, child. You were only a baby. It had nothing to do with your capacity. Andrew did it on principle, just as he did every perverse and wicked thing on principle.
Listen to me patiently, you've got it all mistakenly. Why do I bother to describe your father? It's not about capacity, it's closer to mendacity. The man was wicked in his thoughts, his words, but not his deeds. Andrew's manner could beguile, so urbane yet so vile. Blessed with an engaging smile, he preached venom all the while. He said it all on principle. A wicked man with principle is too confusing, utterly bemusing. Preaching immorality while practicing morality. How would your children never learn to fathom right from wrong?
All this simply bewilders me, Mother. People may differ about matters of opinion or even about religion, but how can they differ about right and wrong? Right is right and wrong is wrong, and if a man cannot distinguish them properly, he is either a fool or a rascal, that's all.
That's my own boy. Your father never could answer that. He used to laugh and get out of it under cover of some affectionate nonsense.
With great joy the man defamed, sin declaimed, unashamed. Don't you see you're not to blame? Drop your guilt, hide your shame. A moral disagreement, what is sensible and decent? It's a bait to marriage, it does love disparage. Stephen, will you hear me? Are my words to you not clear? He could be rude, abounding in the end, a foundling aptly named, unashamed.
And now that you understand the situation, what do you advise me to do?
Well, what can you do?
I must get the money somehow.
We cannot take money from him. I had rather go and live in some cheap place like Bedford Square or even Hampstead than take a farthing of his money.
But after all, Stephen, our present income comes from Andrew.
I never knew that. We are utterly dependent on him and his cannons, then?
Certainly not. The money is settled, but he provided it. So you see, it is not a question of taking money from him or not. It is simply a question of how much. I don't want any more for myself.
Nor do I.
But Sarah does, and Barbara does. That is, Charles Lomax and Adolphus' cousins will cost them more. So I must put my pride in my pocket and ask for it, I suppose. That is your advice, Stephen, is it not?
No.
Stephen.
Of course, if you are determined.
I am not determined. I ask your advice, and I am waiting for it. I will not have all the responsibility thrown on my shoulders.
I would die sooner than ask him for another penny.
You mean that I must ask him? Very well, Stephen. It shall be as you wish. You will be glad to know that your grandfather concurs. But he thinks I ought to ask Andrew to come here and see the girls. After all, he must have some natural affection for them.
Ask him here.
Do not repeat my words, Stephen. Where else can I ask him?
I never expected you to ask him at all.
Now don't tease, Stephen. Come. You see that it is necessary that he should pay us a visit, don't you?
I suppose so, if the girls cannot do without his money.
Thank you, Stephen. I knew you would give me the right advice when it was properly explained to you. I have asked your father to come this evening. Don't jump, Stephen. It fidgets me.
Do you mean to say that my father is coming here tonight? That he may be here at any moment?
I said 9. Ring the bell, please. It is 10 minutes to 9 yet, and I have to prepare the girls. I asked Charles Lomax and Adolphus to dinner on purpose that they might be here. Andrew had better see them, in case he should cherish any delusions as to their being capable of supporting their wives. Morrison, go up to the drawing room and tell everybody to come down here at once. Don't look nervous, Stephen. It will only encourage Barbara to make difficulties. I am nervous enough, goodness knows, but I don't show it. What the devil is that?
Miss, you and Miss Sarah are asked to meet your mother downstairs.
Yes, thank you, Morrison. Are Cholly and Dolly to come in?
Barbara, I will not have Charles called Cholly. The vulgarity of it positively makes me ill.
It's all right, Mother. Cholly is quite correct nowadays. Are they to come in?
Yes, if they will behave themselves.
Come in, Dolly, and behave yourself.
Come in, Cholly.
Sit down, all of you. I don't in the least know what you are laughing at, Adolphus. I am surprised at you, though I expected nothing better from Charles Lomax.
Barbara has been trying to teach me the West Ham Salvation March.
I see nothing to laugh at in that, nor should you if you are really converted.
You were not present. It was really funny, I believe.
Ripping.
Be quiet, Charles. Now listen to me, children. Your father is coming here this evening.
Oh, I say.
You are not called on to say anything, Charles.
Are you serious, Mother?
Of course I'm serious. It is on your account, Sarah, and also on Charles's. I hope you are not going to object, Barbara.
Why should I? My father has a soul to be saved like anybody else. He's quite welcome as far as I am concerned.
But Wearsy, don't you know? I'll always say.
What do you wish to convey, Charles?
Well, you must admit that this is a bit thick.
Adolphus, you are a professor of Greek. Can you translate Charles Lomax's remarks into reputable English for us?
If I may say so, Lady Britt, I think Charles has rather happily expressed what we all feel. Homer, speaking of Autolycus, uses the same phrase.
Not that I mind, you know, if Sarah don't.
Thank you. Have I your permission, Adolphus, to invite my own husband to my own house?
You have my unhesitating support in everything you do.
Tush. Sarah, have you nothing to say?
Do you mean that he is coming regularly to live here?
Certainly not. The spare room is ready for him if he likes to stay for a day or two and see a little more of you. But there are limits.
Well, he can't eat us, I suppose. I don't mind.
I wonder how the old man will take it.
Much as the old woman will, no doubt, Charles.
I didn't mean, at least...
You didn't think, Charles. You never do. And the result is, you never mean anything. And now please attend to me, children. Your father will be quite a stranger to us.
I suppose he hasn't seen Sarah since she was a little kid.
Not since she was a little kid, Charles, as you express it with that elegance of diction and refinement of thought that seem never to desert you. Accordingly, now I have forgotten what I was going to say. That comes of your provoking me to be sarcastic, Charles. Adolphus, will you kindly tell me where I was?
You were saying that as Mr. Undershaft has not seen his children since they were babies, he will form his opinion of the way you have brought them up from their behaviour tonight, and that therefore you wish us all to be particularly careful to conduct ourselves well, especially Charles.
Precisely.
Look here, Dolly. Lady Britt didn't say that.
I did, Charles. Adolphus's recollection is perfectly correct. It is most important that you should be good, and I do beg you for once not to pair off into opposite corners and giggle and whisper while I am speaking to your father.
All right, Mother. We'll do you credit.
Remember, Charles, that Sarah will want to feel proud of you instead of ashamed of you.
Oh, I say, there's nothing to be exactly proud of, don't you know?
Well, try and look as if there was.
Mr. Undershaft.
Good evening, Andrew.
How do you do, my dear?
You look a good deal older.
I am somewhat older. Time has stood still with you.
Rubbish. This is your family.
Is it so large? I am sorry to say my memory is failing very badly in some things.
Howdy do.
I can see you are my eldest. I am very glad to meet you again, my boy.
No, But look here, don't you know? Oh, I say!
Andrew, do you mean to say that you don't remember how many children you have?
Well, I am afraid they have grown so much. Am I making any ridiculous mistake? I may as well confess. I recollect only one son. But so many things have happened since, of course.
Andrew, you are talking nonsense. Of course you have only one son.
Perhaps you will be good enough to introduce me, my dear.
That is Charles Lomax, who is engaged to Sarah.
My dear sir, I beg your pardon.
Not at all. Delighted, I assure you.
This is Stephen.
Happy to make your acquaintance, Mr. Stephen.
Then you must be my son.
How are you, my young friend? He is very like you, my love.
You flatter me, Mr. Undershaft. My name is Cousins, engaged to Barbara. That is Major Barbara Undershaft of the Salvation Army. That is Sarah, your second daughter. This is Stephen Undershaft, your son.
My dear Stephen, I beg your pardon.
Not at all.
Mr. Cousins, I am much indebted to you for explaining so precisely. Barbara, my dear.
Sarah.
Sarah, of course. Barbara. I am right this time, I hope.
Quite right.
Sit down, all of you. Sit down, Andrew.
Thank you, my love.
Takes you some time to find out exactly where you are, don't it?
That is not what embarrasses me, Mr. Lomax. My difficulty is that if I play the part of a father, I shall produce the effect of an intrusive stranger, and if I play the part of a discreet stranger, I may appear a callous father.
There is no need for you to play any part at all, Andrew. You had much better be sincere and natural.
Yes, my dear. I dare say that will be best. Is Cholly also a member of the Salvation Army?
No, he says it's bad form to be a dissenter. But I don't despair of Cholly. I made him come yesterday to a meeting at the dock gates and take the collection in his hat.
It is not my doing, Andrew. Barbara is old enough to take her own way. She has no father to advise her.
Oh, yes, she has. There are no orphans in the Salvation Army.
Your father there has a great many children and plenty of experience, eh?
Just so. How did you come to understand that?
I am rather interested in the Salvation Army. Its motto might be my own, blood and fire.
But not your sort of blood and fire, you know.
My sort of blood cleanses. My sort of fire purifies.
So do ours. Come down tomorrow to my shelter, the West Ham shelter, and see what we're doing. We're going to march to a great meeting in the Assembly Hall at Mile End. Come and see the shelter and then march with us. It will do you a lot of good. Can you play anything?
In my youth I earned pennies, and even shillings occasionally, in the streets and in public house parlours by my natural talent for step dancing. Later on, I became a member of the Undershaft Orchestral Society and performed passably on the tenor trombone.
Many a sinner has played himself into heaven on the trombone, thanks to the army.
Yes, but what about the canon business, don't you know? Getting into heaven is not exactly in your line, is it?
Charles!
Well, but it stands to reason, don't it? The canon business may be necessary and all that. We can't get on without canons. But it isn't right, you know. On the other hand, there may be a certain amount of tosh about the Salvation Army. I belong to the established church myself. But still, you can't deny that it's religion, and you can't go against religion, can you? At least unless you're downright immoral, don't you know?
You hardly appreciate my position, Mr. Lomax.
I'm not saying anything against you personally.
Quite so, quite so. But consider for a moment. Here I am, a profiteer in mutilation and murder. I find myself in a specially amiable humour just now because this morning down at the foundry we blew 27 dummy soldiers into fragments with a gun which formerly destroyed only 13.
Well, the more destructive war becomes, the sooner it will be abolished, eh?
Not at all. The more destructive war becomes, the more fascinating we find it. No, Mr. Lomax, I am obliged to you for making the usual excuse for my trade, but I am not ashamed of it. I am not one of those men who keep their morals and their business in watertight compartments. Your Christianity, which enjoins you to resist not evil and to turn the other cheek, would make me a bankrupt. My morality, my religion, must have a place for cannons and torpedoes in it.
You speak as if there were half a dozen moralities and religions to choose from instead of one true morality and one true religion.
For me, there is only one true morality, but it might not fit you, as you do not manufacture aerial battleships. There is only one true morality for every man, but every man has not the same true morality.
Would you mind saying that again? I didn't quite follow it.
It's quite simple. As Euripides says, one man's meat is another man's poison morally as well as physically.
Precisely.
Oh, that. Yes, yes, yes. True, true.
In other words, some men are honest and some are scoundrels.
Bosh, there are no scoundrels.
Indeed. Are there any good men?
No, not one. There are neither good men nor scoundrels. There are just children of one father, and the sooner they stop calling one another names, the better. You needn't talk to me. I know them. I've had scores of them through my hands. Scoundrels, criminals, infidels, philanthropists, missionaries, county councillors, all sorts. They're all just the same sort of sinner, and there's the same salvation ready for them all.
Salvation awaits, so hurry, praise the blood of the Savior, the light of the world. The truths of the gospel are all we need now to fashion a better life. Every penitent man, no matter how poor, must know he can have his eternal reward, promoted to glory, there to receive the crown of eternal life. Glorious purity shines from the soul, washed in the blood and baptized by the fire. My Father's children all must be shown. Death can bring greater life.
She speaks of the poor. Why can't she see that poverty brings all the world's misery? A man must be sure his hunger's forgotten before he can feed his soul. Salvation awaits all who embrace the blood of revolt, the blaze of unrest. The needs of the living are all we need know to fashion a better life. My blood and fire ennoble the lives of thousands of people who might otherwise die. My misguided child, you too need to see. Death can bring greater life. My blood and fire ennoble the lives of thousands of people who might otherwise die. My misguided child, you too need to see.
Have you ever saved a maker of cannons?
No. Will you let me try?
Well, I will make a bargain with you. If I go to see you tomorrow in your salvation shelter, will you come the day after to see me in my cannon works?
Take care. It may end in your giving up the cannons for the sake of the Salvation Army.
Are you sure it will not end in your giving up the Salvation Army for the sake of the cannons?
I will take my chance of that.
And I will take my chance of the other. Where is your shelter?
In West Ham, at the sign of the cross. Ask anybody in Canning Town. Where are your works?
In Perivale, St. Andrews, at the sign of the sword. Ask anybody in Europe.
Really, you two, you go on as if religion were a pleasant subject. Do have some sense of propriety.
I do not find it an unpleasant subject, my dear. It is the only one that capable people really care for.
Well, if you are determined to have it, I insist on having it in a proper and respectable way. Charles, ring for prayers.
Oh, I say.
I am afraid I must be going.
You cannot go now, Andrew. It would be most improper. Sit down. What will the servants think?
My dear, I have conscientious scruples. May I suggest a compromise? If Barbara will conduct a little service in the drawing room, I will attend it willingly. I will even take part if a trombone can be procured.
Don't mock, Andrew.
You don't think I am mocking, my love, I hope?
No, of course not. And it wouldn't matter if you were. Half the army came to their first meeting for a lark. Come along. Come, Dolly. Come, Cholly.
Mother.
What's the matter?
Nothing. Foolishness. You can go with him too, if you like, and leave me with the servants.
Oh, you mustn't think that, Mother. I don't like him.
The others do. That is the injustice of a woman's lot. A woman has to bring up her children, and that means to restrain them, to deny them things they want, to set them tasks, to punish them when they do wrong, to do all the unpleasant things. And then the father, who has nothing to do but pet them and spoil them, comes in when all her work is done and steals their affection from her.
He has not stolen our affection from you. It is only curiosity.
I won't be consoled, Stephen. There is nothing the matter with me.
Where are you going, Mother?
To the drawing room, of course. Are you coming, Stephen?
No, certainly not.
Feel better after your meal, sir?
No, call that a meal. Good enough for you, perhaps. But what is it to me, an intelligent working man?
What's your name?
Price. Brontere O'Brien, Price. Usually called Snobby Price for short.
Rummy Mitchens, sir.
Your health, Miss Mitchens.
Mrs. Mitchens.
What? Oh, rummy. Respectable married woman, rummy, getting rescued by the Salvation Army by pretending to be a bad one. Same old game.
What am I to do? I can't starve. Them Salvation lasses is dear good girls, but the better you are, the worse they likes to think you were before they rescued you. Why shouldn't they have a bit of credit, poor loves? They're worn to rags by their work, and where would they get the money to rescue us if we was to let on we're no worse than other people? You know what ladies and gentlemen are.
Before a proper gentleman'll drop a helpful shilling, before a gracious lady finds a charity is willing, the lady and the gentleman want I retire. You got to entertaining if you want to make the sale.
A story of misfortune, it's too close to home. You got to show the blighters that the fault is all your own.
Dream up a juicy story that puts them a cut above, and they'll shower you with unselfish love.
Have I told you my vocation as the devil's a thinking? You see, it's just a babe I let the prince of darkness in. Together we committed many spicy acts of sin. But now I have the light within. My dear old mom couldn't flee my anger and my rage. I used to pull a Snow White errand and smash the spider rage.
Used you to beat your mother?
Not likely. She used to beat me.
No matter, come and hear that I have turned a brand new page and reached my current blessed stage.
That's what's so unfair to us women. Your confessions is just as big lies as ours. You don't tell what you really done no more than us, but you men can tell your lies right out at the meetings and be made much of for it, while the sort of confessions we is to make as to be whispered to one lady at a time.
At age 13, it seems obscene. I started, you know what? With wicked joy, I sought employ in a house of you know where. I made my living freely, giving fun for you know why. But I have kissed my past goodbye. So many men I called on then and let them, don't you know? I've quite lost count of the amount of lads I don't you see. My sinful ways and bygone days were full of, can't you guess? But now I'm filled with holiness.
Look at 'em, lining up and hoping to hear something juicy.
Were you bad enough to be good enough to receive these pence today? Did you smart enough, carry on enough to deserve this job of pay?
Let us hear your debauchees.
We remain very cautious since your past in disarray. Were you bad enough to be good enough to receive these pence today?
Make it saucy this time, mate.
May it please you, I should like to unburden myself right now. As a youth I was a wise guy, and a scofflaw, yes and how. I flouted common decency, ignored the golden rule, and 3 times I skipped school. Not bad enough, we've had enough. Tell us something mean and cruel. Did I mention my detention for despoiling a mule? You were bad enough to be good enough to receive these pence today. You spoiled enough, carried on enough to deserve this job of pay.
Let us hear your debauchees.
We remain very cautious since your past in disarray. Were you bad enough to be good enough to deserve these pence today?
If you please, miss, I'd better whisper this. Revolting,
Disgusting,
appalling,
tell us more.
you're not just poor, you're a horrible sinner, and so you're a winner today.
Hooray for the vile, for they make us feel worthwhile, and it doesn't cost a lot compared to these urchins. We are innocent as
Pluck up. I'll get you something to eat. You'll be all right then.
Poor old man. Cheer up, brother. You'll find rest and peace and happiness here. Hurry up with the food, miss. He's fair done. Buck up, daddy. She's fetching your thick slice of bread and treacle and a mug of sky blue.
I'm not an old man. I'm only 46. I'm as good as ever I was. The grey patch come in my hair before I was 30. Holy God, I've worked 10 to 12 hours a day since I was 13 and paid my way all through. And now am I to be thrown into the gutter and my job given to a young man that can do it no better than me because I've black hair that goes white at the first change?
No good jarring about it. Make the thieving swine give you a meal. They've stole many a one from you. Get a bit of your own back. There you are, brother. Orska blessing and tuck that into you.
I never took anything before.
Come. The Lord sends it to you. He wasn't above taking bread from his friends, and why should you be? Besides, when we find you a job, you can pay us for it if you like.
Yes, that's true. I can pay you back. It's only a loan. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
Well, Rummy, are you more comfortable now?
God bless you, lovey. You've fed my body and saved my soul, haven't you? Sit down and rest a bit. You must be ready to drop.
I've been going hard since morning, but there's more work than we can do. I mustn't stop.
Try a prayer for just 2 minutes. You'll work all the better after.
Oh, isn't it wonderful how a few minutes' prayer revives you? I was so tired, but Major Barbara just sent me to pray for 5 minutes, and I was able to go on as if I had only just begun. Did you have a piece of bread?
Yes, miss, but I've got the peace that I value more. And that's the peace that passeth all understanding.
Glory, hallelujah.
That makes me so happy. When you say that, I feel wicked for loitering here. I must get to work again.
I know you. You're the one that took away my girl. You're the one that set her again me. Well, I'm going to have her out. Not that I care a curse for her or you, see, but I'll let her know. And I'll let you know. I'm going to give her a doing that will teach her to cut away from me. Now in with you and tell her to come out before I come in and kick her out. Tell her Bill Walker wants her. She'll know what that means. And if she keeps me waiting, it'll be worse. You stop to jaw back at me and I'll start on you. Do you hear? There's your way. In you go.
Easy there, mate. She ain't doing you no harm.
Who are you calling, mate? You're going to stand up for her, are you? Put up your hands.
Oh, you great brute.
God forgive you. How could you strike an old woman like that?
You God forgive me again, and I'll God forgive you one on the jaw that will stop you praying for a week. Have you got anything to say again it?
No, matey, she ain't anything to do with me.
Good job for you. I'll put 2 meals into you and fight you with 1 finger arter, you starved cur. Now, are you going to fetch out Mog Abijam, or am I to knock your face off you and fetch her myself?
Oh, please, someone go in and tell Major Barbara.
You want to go in and tell your major of me, do you?
Oh, please don't drag my hair. Let me go.
Go and show her that. And tell her, if she wants one like it, to come and interfere with me. Here, finish your mess and get out of my way.
You mind what you're about. The Major here is the Earl of Stevenage's granddaughter.
Good morning.
Good morning, miss.
Sit down, make yourself at home. Now then, since you've made friends with us, we want to know all about you. Names and addresses and trades.
Peter Shirley, fitter, checked out 2 months ago because I was too old.
Steady.
Teetotaler, never out of a job before. Good worker, and sent to the knackers like an old horse.
No matter. If you did your part, God will do his.
My religion's no concern of anybody but myself.
I know. Atheist?
Did I offer to deny it?
Why should you? My own father's an atheist, I think. Our father, yours and mine, fulfills himself in many ways. And I dare say he knew what he was about when he made an atheist of you. So buck up, Peter. He can always find a job for a steady man like you. What's your name?
What's that to you?
Afraid to give his name? Any trade?
Who's afraid to give his name? If you want to bring a charge again me, bring it. My name's Bill Walker.
Bill Walker? Oh, I know. You're the man that Jenny Hill was praying for inside just now.
Who's Jenny Hill? And what call has she to pray for me?
I don't know. Perhaps it was you that cut her lip.
Yes, it was me that cut her lip. I ain't afraid of you.
How could you be, since you're not afraid of God? You're a brave man, Mr. Walker. It takes some pluck to do our work here. but none of us dare lift our hand against a girl like that, for fear of her father in heaven.
I want none of your canting jaw. I suppose you think I come here to beg from you like this damaged lot here, not me. I don't want your bread and scrape and cat lap.
Spare me more salvation, Savior, explanation. This life is all there is, or don't believe in your God any more than you. Keep your invitation, worthless humiliation. What price salvation? Or not one of those wretches I'm as good as you. Oh, I've got precious little, but what I've got I'll keep. This bill of goods you're selling doesn't come that cheap. You talk about salvation, but think about the cost. Oh, I've still got the self-respect these other fools have lost. So let a man who's well-to-do purchase heaven's fare, £5 for a ticket, and skip the foolish prayer. You best save your saving, for them as can afford it. They can look on heaven's gate, or happily ignore it. Take back this food you brought, keep it for this damaged lot. I'll keep my dignity, or won't kneel to a God I'm not like you. Won't Christ salvation, or won't cry to a God I'm not like you.
Beg your pardon for putting your name down, Mr. Walker. I didn't understand. I'll strike it out.
Here, you let my name alone. Ain't it good enough to be in your book?
Well, you see, there's no use putting down your name unless I can do something for you, is there? What's your trade?
That's no concern of yours.
Just so. I'll put you down as the man who struck poor little Jenny Hill in the mouth.
See here, I've had enough of this.
Gentleman come to see the shelter, Major. Says he's your father.
Hello, Father. Mr. Shirley. This is my father. I told you he was an atheist, didn't I? Perhaps you'll be able to comfort one another.
An atheist? Not the least in the world, on the contrary, a confirmed mystic.
Sorry, I'm sure. By the way, Papa, what is your religion? In case I have to introduce you again.
My religion? Well, my dear, I am a millionaire. That is my religion.
Then I'm afraid you and Mr. Shirley won't be able to comfort one another after all. You're not a millionaire, are you, Peter?
No, and proud of it.
Poverty, my friend, is not a thing to be proud of.
Who made your millions for you? Me and my like. What's kept us poor, keeping you rich? I wouldn't have your conscience, not for all your income.
I wouldn't have your income, not for all your conscience, Mr. Shirley.
You wouldn't think he was my father, would you, Peter? Will you go into the shelter and lend the lasses a hand for a while? We're worked off our feet.
Yes, I'm in their debt for a meal, ain't I?
Oh, not because you're in their debt, but for love of them, Peter, for love of them. There, don't stare at me. In with you, and give that conscience of yours a holiday.
Ah, it's a pity you never was trained to use your reason, miss. You'd have been a very taking lecturer on atheism.
What's the matter with that outpatient over there?
Oh, we shall cure him in no time. Just watch. It would be nice to just stamp on Mog Habijam's face, wouldn't it, Bill?
It's a lie, I never said so. Who told you what was in my mind?
Only your new friend.
What new friend?
The devil, Bill. When he gets round people, they get miserable. Just like you.
I ain't miserable.
Well, if you're happy, why don't you look happy as we do?
I'm happy enough, I tell you. Why can't you leave me alone? What have I done to you? I ain't smashed your face, have I?
It's not me that's getting at you, Bill.
Who else is it?
Somebody that doesn't intend you to smash women's faces, I suppose. Somebody or something that wants to make a man of you.
Make a man of me? Ain't I a man, eh? Who says I'm not a man?
There's a man in you somewhere, I suppose. But why did he let you hit poor little Jenny Hill? That wasn't very manly of him, was it?
Have done with it, I tell you. Chuck it. I'm sick of your Jenny Hill and her silly little face.
Then why do you keep thinking about it? Why does it keep coming up against you in your mind? You're not getting converted, are you?
Not mean, not likely.
That's right, Bill. Hold out against it. Put out your strength. Don't let's get you cheap. Don't give in to your salvation until your heart is going to break. But then, you haven't any heart, have you?
What do you mean? Why ain't I got a heart same as anybody else?
A man with a heart wouldn't have bashed poor little Jenny's face, would he?
Oh, will you leave me alone? Have I ever offered to meddle with you that you come nagging and provoking me like this?
It's your soul that's hurting you, Bill, and not me. We've been through it all ourselves. Come with us, Bill, to brave manhood on earth and eternal glory in heaven. Come. Oh, there you are, Dolly. Let me introduce a new friend of mine, Mr. Bill Walker. This is my bloke Bill, Mr. Cousins.
Going to marry him?
Yes?
God help him! God help him!
Why? Do you think he won't be happy with me?
I've only had to stand it for a morning. He'll have to stand it for a lifetime.
That is a frightful reflection, Mr. Walker, but I can't tear myself away from her.
Well, I can.
Yes, my dear, it's very wearing to be in love with you. If it lasts, I quite think I shall die young.
Should you mind?
Could I possibly be happy, frolicking forever, with just a pretty little plaything more agreeable than clever? I think so. Would I ever be contented with a quiet cup of tea, who only wants to please me and would never disagree? Quite possibly. But you are my equal, the lyrics to my song. I need that kind of challenge, unless I'm wrong. And if we ever quarrel, as we might someday, I'm glad that you'll be confident, know just what to say. Never lose your self-assurance, don't be too demure. That is what I need, dear. I'm pretty sure.
It's all right, Papa. We've not forgotten you. Dolly, explain the place to Papa. I haven't time.
I fancy you guessed something of what is in my mind, Mr. Cousins. Exactly so. But suppose Barbara finds you out.
You know, I do not admit that I am imposing on Barbara. I'm quite genuinely interested in the views of the Salvation Army. The fact is, I am a sort of collector of religions. And the curious thing is that I find I can believe them all. By the way, have you any religion?
Yes.
Anything out of the common?
Only that there are two things necessary to salvation.
Ah, The Church Catechism. Charles Lomax also belongs to the established church.
The two things are
baptism and...
No. Money and gunpowder.
That is the general opinion of our governing classes. The novelty is in hearing any man confess it.
Just so.
Excuse me, is there any place in your religion for honor, justice, truth, love, mercy, and so forth?
Yes. They are the graces and luxuries of a rich, strong, and safe life.
Suppose one is forced to choose between them and money or gunpowder.
Choose money and gunpowder, for without enough of both you cannot afford the others.
That is your religion?
Yes.
Barbara won't stand that. You will have to choose between your religion and Barbara.
So will you, my friend. She will find out that that drum of yours is hollow.
Father Undershaft, you are mistaken. I am a sincere Salvationist. You do not understand the Salvation Army. It picks the waster out of the public house and makes a man of him. It finds a worm wriggling in a back kitchen, and lo, a woman. It takes the poor professor of Greek, the most artificial and self-suppressed of human creatures, from his meal of roots, and lets loose the rhapsodist in him, reveals the true worship of Dionysus to him, sends him down the public street drumming dithyrambs. You remember what Euripides says about your money and gunpowder?
No.
One and another in money and guns, may pass his brother. And then in their millions float and float.
And seed with a million hopes as leaven. And they win their will, or they miss their will, and their hopes are dead or pined for still. But whoever can know as the long days go that to live is happy. Has found his
My translation, what do you think of it?
I think, my friend, that if you wish to know as the long days go that to live is happy, you must first acquire money enough for a decent life and power enough to be your own master.
You are damnably discouraging.
May I ask, as Barbara's father, how much a year she is to be happy on?
As for Barbara's father, that is more your affair than mine. I can feed her by teaching Greek. That is about all.
Do you consider it a good match for her?
Mr. Undershaft, I am in many ways a weak, timid, ineffectual person, and my health is far from satisfactory, but I feel that I and nobody else must marry her. Please regard that as settled. Not that I wish to be arbitrary, but why should I waste your time in discussing what is inevitable?
You mean that you will stop at nothing, not even the conversion of the Salvation Army to the worship of Dionysus?
The business of the Salvation Army is to save, not to wrangle about the name of the Pathfinder. Dionysus or another? What does it matter?
Professor Cousins, you are a young man after my own heart.
Mr. Undershaft, you are, as far as I am able to gather, a most infernal old rascal, but you appeal very strongly to my sense of ironic humour.
And now to business.
Pardon me. We are discussing religion. Why go back to such an uninteresting and unimportant subject as business?
Religion is our business at present because it is through religion alone that we can win Barbara.
Have you too fallen in love with Barbara?
Yes, with a father's love.
A father's love for a grown-up daughter is the most dangerous of all infatuations. I apologize for mentioning my own pale, coy, mistrustful fancy in the same breath with it.
Keep to the point. We have to win her, and we are neither of us Methodists.
That doesn't matter. The power Barbara wields here, the power that wields Barbara herself, is not Calvinism, not Presbyterianism, not Methodism.
Not Greek paganism either, eh?
I admit that. Barbara is quite original in her religion.
Aha! Barbara Undershaft would be. Her inspiration comes from within herself.
How do you suppose it got there?
It is the Undershaft inheritance. I shall hand on my torch to my daughter. She shall make my converts and preach my gospel.
What? Money and gunpowder?
Yes, yes, money and gunpowder, freedom and power, command of life, command of death.
This is extremely interesting, Mr. Undershaft. Of course you know that you are mad.
And you?
Oh, mad as a hatter. You are welcome to my secret since I have discovered yours. But I am astonished. Can a madman make cannons?
Would anyone else than a madman make them? And now question for question.
Can a sane man translate Euripides? No. Can a sane woman make a man of a waster? Can a sane woman make a woman of a worm? Father Colossus, mammoth millionaire.
Are there 2 mad people or 3 in this salvation shelter today?
You mean Barbara is as mad as we are?
Let us call things by their proper names. I am a millionaire, you are a poet, Barbara is a saviour of souls. What have we 3 to do with the common mob of slaves and idolaters?
Take care, Barbara is in love with the common people. So am I. Have you never felt the romance of that love?
Are you in love with poverty like St. Francis? Are you in love with dirt like St. Simeon? Are you in love with disease and suffering like our philanthropists? Do not exalt the needy people. That's only an excuse to keep them in their place. If you find holiness in hardship, you share in its disgrace. Let us leave it to the craven to pretend the poor are blessed. Let us leave it to the coward to preach humility to the oppressed. Tell the lowly people to rise up from bended knee. Ignore the pious fools who say how humble they should be. Preach instead a gospel that renounces deprivation. Make them rage against their plight and find their true salvation.
Well, I can only say that if you think you will get her away from the Salvation Army by talking to her as you have been talking to me, you don't know Barbara.
My friend, I never ask for what I can buy.
Do I understand you to imply that you can buy Barbara?
No, but I can buy the Salvation Army.
Quite impossible.
You shall see, all religious organizations exist by selling themselves to the rich.
Not the army. That is the Church of the Poor.
All the more reason for buying it?
I don't think you quite know what the army does for the poor.
Oh, yes, I do. It draws their teeth. That is enough for me as a man of business.
Nonsense. It makes them sober.
I prefer sober workmen. The profits are larger.
Honest.
Honest workmen are the most economical.
Attached to their homes.
So much the better. They will put up with anything sooner than change their shop.
Happy.
An invaluable safeguard against revolution.
Unselfish.
Indifferent to their own interests, which suits me exactly.
With their thoughts on heavenly things.
And not on trade unionism nor socialism. Excellent.
You really are an infernal old rascal.
And this is an honest man.
Yes, and what have I got by it?
Oh, your employers must have got a good deal by it from first to last.
We've just had a splendid meeting at the other gate in Cripps Lane. I've hardly ever seen them so much moved as they were by your confession, Mr. Price.
I could almost be glad of my past wickedness, if I could believe that it would help to keep Hathers straight.
So it will, Snobby. How much, Jenny?
4 and 10 pence, Major.
Oh, Snobby, if you had given your poor mother just one more kick, we should have got the whole 5 shillings.
If she heard you say that, miss, she'd be sorry I didn't. But I'm glad. Oh, what a joy it will be to her when she hears I'm saved.
Shall I contribute the odd twopence, Barbara? The millionaire's mite, eh?
How did you make that twopence?
As usual.
Put it back in your pocket. You can't buy your salvation here for twopence. You must work it out.
Is twopence not enough? I can afford a little more if you press me.
2 million millions would not be enough. There is bad blood on your hands, and nothing but good blood can cleanse them. Money is no use. Dolly, you must write another letter for me to the papers. Yes, I know you don't like it, but it must be done. The General says we must close this shelter if we can't get more money. I force the collections at the meetings until I am ashamed. Don't I, Snobby?
It's a fair treat to see you work it, miss. The way you got them up from 3 and 6 to 4 and 10 with that hymn, penny by penny and verse by verse, was a caution.
Yes, but I wish we could do without it. I am getting at last to think more of the collection than of the people's souls. I want to convert people, not to be always begging for the army in a way I'd die sooner than beg for myself.
Genuine unselfishness is capable of anything, my dear.
Yes, isn't it?
Mephistopheles, Machiavelli.
How are we to feed them? I can't talk religion to a man with bodily hunger in his eyes. It's frightful.
Major, dear.
No, don't comfort me. It will be all right. We shall get the money.
How?
By praying for it, of course. Mrs. Baines says she prayed for it last night, and she has never prayed for it in vain. Never once.
By the way, Dad, Mrs. Baines has come to march with us to our big meeting this afternoon, and she is very anxious to meet you for some reason or other. Perhaps she'll convert you.
I shall be delighted, my dear.
Major, here's that man back again.
What man?
The man that hit me. Oh, I hope he's coming back to join us.
Hello, Bill. Back already?
Been talking ever since, have you?
Pretty nearly.
Listen here. I had £2 saved against the frost and I've £0.5 of it left. Here's the money. I'll take it. And let's have no more of your forgiving and praying and your major jawing me. Let there be an end of it.
No, the army is not to be bought. We want your soul, Bill, and we'll take nothing less.
Oh, I know. Me and my few shillings is not good enough for you. You're a Earl's granddaughter, you are. Nothing less than £100 for you.
Come, Barbara. You could do a great deal of good with £100. If you will set this gentleman's mind at ease by taking his £1, I will give the other 99.
Oh, you're too extravagant, Papa. Bill offers 20 pieces of silver. All you need offer is the other 10. That will make the standard price to buy anybody who's for sale. I'm not. And the army's not. You'll never have another quiet moment, Bill, until you come round to us. You can't stand out against your salvation.
I won't stand out against awful-tongued women. I've offered to pay. I can do no more. Take it or leave it. Oh, there it is.
This is my father, Mrs. Baines. Try what you can do with him. He won't listen to me because he remembers what a fool I was when I was a baby.
Have you been shown over the shelter, Mr. Undershaft? You know the work we're doing, of course.
The whole nation knows it, Mrs. Baines.
No, sir. The whole nation does not know it. or we should not be crippled as we are for want of money to carry our work through the length and breadth of the land. Let me tell you that there would have been rioting this winter in London but for us.
You really think so?
I know it. I remember 1886, when you rich gentlemen hardened your hearts against the cry of the poor. They broke the windows of your clubs in Pall Mall.
And the Mansion House Fund went up next day from £30,000 to £79,000. I remember quite well.
Well, won't you help me to get at the people? They won't break windows then. Come here, Price. Let me show you to this gentleman. Do you remember the window breaking?
My old father thought it was the revolution, ma'am.
Would you break windows now?
Oh no, ma'am. The windows of heaven have been opened to me. I know now that the rich man is a sinner like myself.
You see how we take the anger and the bitterness against you out of their hearts, Mr. Undershaft.
It is certainly most convenient and gratifying to all large employers of labour, Mrs. Baines.
Barbara. Jenny, I have good news, most wonderful news. My prayers have been answered. I told you they would, Jenny, didn't I?
Yes, yes.
Have we got money enough to keep the shelter open?
I hope we shall have enough to keep all the shelters open. Lord Saxmundham has promised us £5,000.
Hooray!
Glory.
If what?
If 5 other gentlemen will give 1,000 each to make it up to 10,000.
Who is Lord Saxmundham? I never heard of him.
A new creation, my dear. You have heard of Sir Horace Bodger?
Bodger? Do you mean the distiller? Bodger's whiskey.
That is the man. He is one of the greatest of our public benefactors. He restored the cathedral at Hakington. They made him a baronet for that. He gave £500,000 to the funds of his party. They made him a baron for that.
What will they give him for the 5,000?
There is nothing left to give him. So the 5,000, I should think, is to save his soul.
Heaven grant it may. Oh, Mr. Undershaft, you have some very rich friends. Can't you help us towards the other 5,000? We are going to hold a great meeting this afternoon at the Assembly Hall in the Mile End Road. If I could only announce that one gentleman had come forward to support Lord Saxmundham, others would follow. Don't you know somebody? Couldn't you? Wouldn't you? Oh, think of those poor people, Mr. Undershaft. Think of how much it means to them and how little to a great man like you.
Mrs. Baines, you are irresistible. I can't disappoint you, and I can't deny myself the satisfaction of making Bodger pay up. You shall have your £5,000.
Thank God.
You don't thank me?
Oh, sir, don't try to be cynical. Don't be ashamed of being a good man. The Lord will bless you abundantly, and our prayers will be like a strong fortification round you all the days of your life. You will let me have the cheque to show at the meeting, won't you? Jenny, go in and fetch a pen and ink.
Do not disturb Miss Hill. I have a fountain pen.
Stop. Mrs. Baines, are you really going to take this money?
Why not, dear?
Why not? Do you know what my father is? Have you forgotten that Lord Saxmundham is Bodger the whiskey man? Do you know that the worst thing I have had to fight here is not the devil, but Bodger, Bodger, Bodger with his whiskey, his distilleries and his pubs? Are you going to make our shelter another pub for him and ask me to keep it?
Rotten drinking whiskey it is too.
Dear Barbara, Lord Saxmundham has a soul to be saved like any of us. If heaven has found the way to make a good use of his money, are we to set ourselves up against the answer to our prayers?
I know he has a soul to be saved. Let him come down here, and I'll do my best to help him to his salvation. But he wants to send his cheque down to buy us and go on being as wicked as ever.
Barbara, will there be less drinking or more if all those poor souls we are saving come tomorrow and find the doors of our shelters shut in their faces? Lord Saxmundham gives us the money to stop drinking, to take his own business from him.
Pure self-sacrifice on Bodger's part, clearly. Bless dear Bodger.
I also, Mrs. Baines, may claim a little disinterestedness. Think of my business. Think of the widows and orphans, the men and lads torn to pieces with shrapnel and poisoned with lyddite, the bad blood of the fierce little cowards at home who egg on others to fight for the gratification of their national vanity. All this makes money for me. I am never richer, never busier than when the papers are full of it. Well, it is your work to preach peace on earth and goodwill to men. Every convert you make is a vote against war. Yet I give you this money to help you to hasten my own commercial ruin.
Oh, be joyful.
Oh dear, how blessed, how glorious.
Let us seize this unspeakable moment. Let us march to the great meeting at once.
Mr. Undershaft, have you ever seen 1,000 people fall on their knees with one impulse and pray? Come with us to the meeting. Barbara shall tell them that the army is saved, and saved through you.
You shall carry the flag down the first street, Mrs. Baines. Mr. Undershaft is a gifted trombonist. He shall intone an Olympian diapason to the West Ham Salvation March. Blow, Machiavelli, blow.
The trumpet in Zion. I will do my best. I could vamp a bass if I knew the tune.
It is a wedding chorus from one of Donizetti's operas, but we have converted it. We convert everything to good here, including Bodger. You remember the chorus. For the immense rejoicing, immenso jubilo, with drum obbligato, rum tumti tum 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 tumti ta.
My ducats and my daughter.
Money and gunpowder.
Let us praise glorious man. What for salvation now? What for salvation now? Comfort them with heaven's light.
My God! Why hast thou forsaken me? You were always there to hold me when I needed your embrace. The feeling that you loved me made my heart a holy place. You have never been more distant than the whisper of a prayer. But this evening I looked up and saw that weren't there.
We have been blessed on this glorious day. Praise God, praise God.
You were always there to take my hand and help me find my way. The certainty you gave me let me cast my fears away. You have never let me falter or surrender to despair. But I never thought there'd come a time when you
Isn't it glorious?
let us give thanks.
Let us give thanks for this gift we have received. These men are heroes, and God has chosen them to bring us to salvation. We ask God to bless these men and comfort them with heaven's light.
You're not wearing your uniform.
Charles!
I'm awfully sorry, Barbara. You know I helped you all I could with the concertina and so forth. Still, I have never shut my eyes to the fact that there is a certain amount of tosh about the Salvation Army. Now the claims of the Church of England...
That's enough, Charles. Speak of something suited to your mental capacity.
But surely the Church of England is suited to all our capacities.
Thank you for your sympathy, Cholly. Now go and spoon with Sarah.
How is my onus today?
I wish you wouldn't tell Cholly to do things, Barbara. He always comes straight and does them. Cholly, we're going to the works at Perivale St Andrews this afternoon.
What works?
The Cannon Works?
What? Your governor's shop?
Yes.
Oh, I say.
I expected you this morning, Dolly. Didn't you guess that?
I'm sorry, I have only just breakfasted.
But we've just finished lunch.
Have you had one of your bad nights?
No, I had rather a good night. In fact, one of the most remarkable nights I have ever passed.
The meeting?
No, after the meeting.
You should have gone to bed after the meeting. What were you doing?
Drinking.
Oh, I say.
Adolphus. What were you drinking, may I ask?
A most devilish kind of Spanish Burgundy, warranted free from added alcohol. A temperance Burgundy, in fact. Its richness in natural alcohol made any addition superfluous.
Are you joking, Dolly?
No, I have been making a night of it. With the nominal head of this household, that is all.
Andrew made you drunk.
No, he only provided the wine. I think it was Dionysus who made me drunk.
What happened at the meeting?
It was an amazing meeting. Mrs. Baines almost died of emotion. Jenny Hill went stark mad with hysteria. The Prince of Darkness played his trombone like a madman. They prayed with the most touching sincerity and gratitude for Bodger and for the anonymous donor of the £5,000. Your father would not let his name be given.
That was rather fine of the old man, you know. Most chaps would have wanted the advertisement.
He said all the charitable institutions would be down on him like kites on a battlefield if he gave his name.
That's Andrew all over. He never does a proper thing without giving an improper reason for it.
He convinced me that I have all my life been doing improper things for proper reasons.
Rubbish! What is it?
If you please, my lady, Mr. Undershaft has just drove up to the door.
Well, let him in.
Thank you, my lady.
Children, go and get ready. Charles, go and tell Stephen to come down here in 5 minutes. You will find him in the drawing room. Adolphus, tell them to send round the carriage in about 15 minutes.
Mr. Undershaft.
Alone? How fortunate.
Don't be sentimental, Andrew. Sit down. Sarah must have £800 a year until Charles Lomax comes into his property. Barbara will need more, and need it permanently, because Adolphus hasn't any property.
Yes, my dear, I will see to it. Anything else? For yourself, for instance.
I want to talk to you about Stephen.
Don't, my dear. Stephen doesn't interest me.
He does interest me. He is our son.
Do you really think so? He has induced us to bring him into the world, but he chose his parents very incongruously, I think. I see nothing of myself in him and less of you.
Andrew, Stephen is an excellent son and a most steady, capable, high-minded young man. You are simply trying to find an excuse for disinheriting him.
My dear Biddy, the Undershaft tradition disinherits him. It would be dishonest of me to leave the cannon foundry to my son.
It would be most unnatural and improper of you to leave it anyone else, Andrew. Do you suppose this wicked and immoral tradition can be kept up forever? Do you pretend that Stephen could not carry on the foundry just as well as all the other sons of the big business houses?
Yes, he could learn the office routine without understanding the business like all the other sons, and the firm would go on by its own momentum until the real Undershaft, probably an Italian or a German, would invent a new method and cut him out.
Andrew, don't be aggravating and don't be wicked. At present you are both.
This conversation is part of the Undershaft tradition, Biddy. Every Undershaft's wife has treated him to it ever since the house was founded. It is mere waste of breath. If the tradition be ever broken, it will be for an abler man than Stephen.
Then go away.
Go away?
Yes, go away. If you will do nothing for Stephen, you are not wanted here. Go to your orphan, whoever he is, and look after him.
The fact is, Biddy...
Don't call me Biddy. I don't call you Andy.
I will not call my wife Britomart. It is not good sense.
I beg your pardon.
No, come in, Stephen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
He knows all about the tradition, I suppose?
Yes. It is what I told you last night, Stephen.
I understand you want to come into the cannon business.
Go into trade? Certainly not.
Oh, in that case.
Cannons are not trade, Stephen. They are enterprise.
I have no intention of becoming a man of business in any sense. I have no capacity for business and no taste for it. I intend to devote myself to politics.
My dear boy, this is an immense relief to me, and I trust it may prove an equally good thing for the country. I was afraid you would consider yourself disparaged and slighted.
Stephen, I cannot allow you to throw away an enormous property like this.
Mother, there must be an end of treating me as a child, if you please. Until last night, I did not take your attitude seriously, because I did not think you meant it seriously. But I find now that you left me in the dark as to matters which you should have explained to me years ago. I am extremely hurt and offended. Any further discussion of my intentions had better take place with my father, as between one man and another.
Stephen.
You see, my dear,
it is only the big men who can be treated as children.
I am sorry, Mother, that you have forced me.
Yes. That's all right, Stephen. She won't interfere with you anymore. Your independence is achieved. You have won your latchkey. Don't rub it in. And above all, don't apologise. Now, what about your future, as between one man and another? I beg your pardon, Biddy, as between two men and a woman?
I quite understand, Stephen. By all means, go your own way if you feel strong enough.
It is settled that you do not ask for the succession to the cannon business.
I hope it is settled that I repudiate the cannon business.
Come. Don't be so devilishly sulky. It's boyish. Freedom should be generous.
Besides, I owe you a fair start in life in exchange for disinheriting you.
You can't become Prime Minister all at once. Haven't you a turn for something? What about literature, art, and so forth?
I have nothing of the artist about me, either in faculty or character. Thank heaven.
A philosopher, perhaps?
I make no such ridiculous pretension.
Just so. Well, there is the army, the navy, the church, the bar. The bar requires some ability. What about the bar?
I have not studied law, and I am afraid I have not the necessary push. I believe that is the name barristers give to their vulgarity, for success in pleading.
Rather a difficult case, Stephen. Hardly anything left but the stage, is there? Okay, is there anything you know or care for?
I know the difference between right and wrong.
You don't say so.
No capacity for business, no knowledge of the law, no pretension to philosophy, no sympathy with art, just the answer to the question that has mystified them all. The knowledge of right and wrong. You're a genius, a master, a god. At only 24, it has puzzled the philosophers, baffled all the barristers, muddled all the businessmen, and ruined men of arts. The fundamental questions of morality, mortality, reality, humanity, examined by a panoply of wise men risking sanity, and you speak this inanity. I can tell the difference between right and wrong. You're a genius, a master, a god. I should have known before.
You are pleased to be facetious. I pretend to nothing more than any honourable English gentleman claims as his birthright.
Oh, that's everybody's birthright. Look at poor little Jenny Hill, the Salvation Lassie. She would think you were laughing at her if you asked her to stand up in the street and teach grammar or geography or mathematics, or even drawing room dancing. But it never occurs to her to doubt that she can teach morals and religion. You are all alike, you respectable people. You can't tell me the bursting strain of a 10-inch gun, which is a very simple matter, but you all think you can tell me the bursting strain of a man under temptation. You daren't handle high explosives, but you're all ready to handle honesty and truth and justice, and the whole duty of man, and kill one another at that game. What a country! What a world!
You have bested all the barristers, flummoxed the philosophers, dazzled all the businessmen, amazed the man of arts. The answers to the riddles that have baffled every nation, the elusive regulations of a just civilization. You've spoken, you have stated, you have very clearly said, I can tell the difference between right and wrong. You're a genius, a master, a god. I should have known before.
you think he had better do, Andrew?
Oh, just what he wants to do. He knows nothing, and he thinks he knows everything. That points clearly to a political career. Get him a private secretaryship to someone who can get him an undersecretaryship, and then leave him alone. He will find his natural and proper place in the end on the Treasury bench.
I am sorry, sir, that you forced me to forget the respect due to you as my father. I am an Englishman, and I will not hear the government of my country insulted.
The government of your country? I am the government of your country, I and Lazarus. Do you suppose that you and half a dozen amateurs like you, sitting in a row in that foolish gabble shop, can govern Undershaft and Lazarus? No, my friend, you will do what pays us. Be off with you, my boy, and play with your caucuses and leading articles and historic parties and great leaders and burning questions and the rest of your toys. I am going back to my counting house to pay the piper and call the tune.
Go and get ready, Mamma. The carriage is waiting.
Good day, my dear. Good afternoon, Mr. Lomax.
Ada do.
Quite well after last night, Euripides, eh?
As well as can be expected.
That's right. So you are coming to see my death and devastation factory, Barbara?
You came yesterday to see my salvation factory. I promised you a return visit. I have always thought of it as a sort of pit where lost creatures with blackened faces stirred up smoky fires and were driven and tormented by my father. Is it like that, Dad?
My dear, it is a spotlessly clean and beautiful hillside town.
With a Methodist chapel? Oh, do say there's a Methodist chapel.
There are two, a primitive one and a sophisticated one. There is even an agnostic society, but it is not much patronized as my men are all strongly religious. In the high explosives sheds, they object to the presence of agnostics as unsafe.
And yet they don't object to you. You really are what I was saying yesterday.
What was he saying yesterday?
Never mind, my dear. He thinks I have made you unhappy. Have I?
Do you think I can be happy in this vulgar, silly dress? I, who have worn the uniform. Do you understand what you have done to me? Yesterday I had a man's soul in my hand. I set him in the way of life with his face to salvation. But when we took your money, he turned back to drunkenness and derision. I will never forgive you that. If I had a child, and you destroyed its body with your explosives, if you murdered Dolly with your horrible guns, I could forgive you if my forgiveness would open the gates of heaven to you. But to take a human soul from me and turn it into the soul of a wolf, that is worse than any murder.
Does my daughter despair so easily? Can you strike a man to the heart and leave no mark on him?
Oh, you are right. He can never be lost now. Where was my faith?
Oh, clever, clever devil.
You may be a devil, but God speaks through you sometimes. You have given me back my happiness. I feel it deep down now, though my spirit is troubled.
You have learnt something. That always feels at first as if you had lost something.
Well, take me to the factory of death and let me learn something more. There must be some truth or other behind all this frightful irony. Come, Dolly. Well?
Not a ray of hope. Everything perfect, wonderful, real. It only needs a cathedral to be a heavenly city instead of a hellish one.
Have you found out whether they have done anything for old Peter Shirley?
They have found him a job as gatekeeper and timekeeper. He's frightfully miserable. He calls the timekeeping brainwork and says he isn't used to it. And his gate lodge is so splendid that he's ashamed to use the rooms and skulks in the scullery.
Poor Peter.
Have you two seen the place? Why did you leave us?
I wanted to see everything I was not intended to see. And Barbara wanted to make the men talk.
Have you found anything discreditable?
No. They call him Dandy Andy and are proud of his being a cunning old rascal. But it's all horribly, frightfully, immorally, unanswerably perfect.
Heavens, what a place. Did you see the nursing home?
Did you see the libraries and schools?
Did you see the ballroom and the banqueting chamber in the town hall?
Have you gone into the insurance fund, the pension fund, the building society, the various applications of cooperation?
Well, have you seen everything? I'm sorry I was called away. News from Manchuria.
Good news, I hope.
Very!
Another Japanese victory?
Oh, I don't know. Which side wins does not concern us here. No, the good news is that the aerial battleship is a tremendous success. At the first trial, it has wiped out a fort with 300 soldiers in it.
Dummy soldiers?
No, the real thing. Well, Stephen, what do you think of the place?
Oh, magnificent. A perfect triumph of organisation. Frankly, my dear father, I have been a fool. I had no idea of what it all meant, of the wonderful forethought, the power of organisation, the administrative capacity, the financial genius, the colossal capital it represents. I have been repeating to myself as I came through your streets, peace hath her victories no less renowned than war. I have only one misgiving about it all.
Out with it.
Well, I cannot help thinking that all this provision for every want of your workmen may sap their independence and weaken their sense of responsibility. And greatly as we enjoyed our tea at that splendid restaurant, how they gave us all that luxury and cake and jam and cream for 3p, I really cannot imagine. Still, you must remember that restaurants break up home life. Look at the continent, for instance. Are you sure so much pampering is really good for the men's characters?
Well, you see, my dear boy, when you are organising civilization, you have to make up your mind whether trouble and anxiety are good things or not. If you decide that they are, then I take it. You simply don't organise civilization. And there you are, with trouble and anxiety enough to make us all angels. But if you decide the other way, you may as well go through with it. However, Stephen, our characters are safe here. A sufficient dose of anxiety is always provided by the fact that we may be blown to smithereens at any moment.
By the way, Papa, where do you make the explosives?
In separate little sheds like that one. When one of them blows up, it costs very little, and only the people quite close to it are killed.
My good fellow, you needn't get into a state of nerves. Nothing's going to happen to you, and I suppose it wouldn't be the end of the world if anything did. A little bit of British pluck is what you want, old chap.
Anything wrong, Bilton?
Gentleman walked into the high explosives shed and lit a cigarette, sir. That's all.
Ah, quite so. Do you happen to remember what you did with the match?
Oh, come, I'm not a fool. I took jolly good care to blow it out before I chucked it away.
The top of it was red hot inside, sir.
Well, suppose it was. I didn't chuck it into any of your messes.
Think no more of it, Mr. Lomax. By the way, would you mind lending me your matches?
Certainly.
Thanks.
You know, these high explosives don't go off like gunpowder, except when they're in a gun, when they're spread loose. You can put a match to them without the least risk. They just burn quietly, like a bit of paper. Did you know that, Undershaft? Have you ever tried?
Not on a large scale, Mr. Lomax. Bilton will give you a sample of gun cotton when you are leaving, if you ask him. You can experiment with it at home.
Bilton will do nothing of the sort, Papa. I suppose it's your business to blow up foreigners, but you might really stop short of blowing up poor Cholly.
My ownest, there is no danger.
Andrew, you shouldn't have let me see this place.
Why, my dear?
Never mind why. You shouldn't have. That's all. To think of all that being yours, and that you have kept it to yourself all these years.
It does not belong to me. I belong to it.
It is the Undershaft inheritance.
It is not. Your ridiculous cannons and that noisy banging foundry may be the Undershaft inheritance. But all that plate and linen, all that furniture and those houses and orchards and gardens belong to us. They belong to me. They are not a man's business. I won't give them up. You must be out of your senses to throw them all away, and if you persist in such folly, I will call in a doctor.
Where did you get the flowers, my dear?
Your men presented them to me in your William Morris Labour Church.
Oh, it needed only that. A Labour church.
Yes, with Morris's words in mosaic letters 10 feet high round the dome. No man is good enough to be another man's master. The cynicism of it.
It shocked the men at first, I'm afraid. But now they take no more notice of it than of the 10 commandments in church.
Andrew, you are trying to put me off the subject of the inheritance by profane jokes. Well, you shan't. I don't ask it any longer for Stephen. He has inherited far too much of your perversity to be fit for it. But Barbara has rights as well as Stephen. Why should not Adolphus succeed to the inheritance?
Adolphus!
Adolphus,
You want him to do it?
you want him to do it.
I could manage the time.
It is simply astounding.
But he must be a foundling.
You could leave the details to me.
Confounding.
I don't know why I was weary.
He must be a foundling.
He can look after the cannons if they are really necessary.
Can Adolphus, will he Adolphus?
I could manage the town.
What about Adolphus?
I should ask nothing better if Adolphus were a foundling. But he is not a foundling. And that's the end of that.
That's true.
That's it.
Too bad.
Not quite. What do you mean?
What does he mean? Say not quite.
I have something to say.
What is it?
Tell us.
Which is in the nature of a...
What could it be?
Confession.
Confession.
Always say.
Yes, I must confess that due to Barbara's loveliness, I haven't truthfully distorted my condition.
A startling admission.
You see, when I first met her, she seemed outwardly no better than the others at the mission who were wheedling contrition from the cautious.
Adolphus!
I thought my education placed me far above her station, and the handsome Greek professor would attract a girl from lower social order.
He thought he could afford her.
But then I learned this simple girl could boast a grandpa who's an earl, a woman of substantial means whose father's riches make the queens look small. The differences aren't at all. Given the state of our relative worth, I sought to deceive her concerning my birth.
Adolphus, your attempt to be a foundling is a failure, for I have pictures of your parents in Australia.
In Australia, no transgression is detectable, and my parents' marriage there is quite respectable. But my mother is the sister of my father's dead first wife, and because of that in England they've been outcasts all their life.
What?
Don't you see that they're illegal here and not coincidentally? On this island I'm a foundling. Consequently,
Is the subterfuge good enough, Machiavelli?
Biddy, this may be a way out of the difficulty.
Stuff! A man can't make cannons any the better for being his own cousin instead of his proper self.
You are an educated man. That is against the tradition.
Once in 10,000 times it happens that the schoolboy is a born master of what they try to teach him. Greek has not destroyed my mind. It has nourished it. Besides, I did not learn it at an English public school.
Well, I cannot afford to be too particular. You have cornered the foundling market. Let it pass. You are eligible, Euripides. You are eligible.
Dolly, yesterday morning, when Stephen told us all about the tradition, you became very silent, and you have been strange and excited ever since. Were you thinking of your birth then?
When the finger of destiny suddenly points at a man in the middle of his breakfast, it makes him thoughtful.
Aha! You have had your eye on the business, my young friend, have you?
Take care. There is an abyss of moral horror between me and your accursed aerial battleships.
Never mind the abyss for the present. Let us settle the practical details and leave your final decision open. You know that you will have to change your name. Do you object to that?
Would any man named Adolphus, any man called Dolly, object to be called something else?
Good. Now, as to money, I propose to treat you handsomely from the beginning. You shall start at 1,000 a year.
1,000? You dare offer a miserable 1,000 to the son-in-law of a millionaire? No, by heavens, Machiavelli, you shall not cheat me. You cannot do without me, and I can do without you. I must have 2,500 a year for 2 years. At the end of that time, if I am a failure, I go. But if I am a success and stay on, you must give me the other 5,000.
What other 5,000?
To make the 2 years up to 5,000 a year, the 2,500 is only half pay in case I should turn out a failure. The third year, I must have 10% on the profits.
10%? Why, man, do you know what my profits are?
Enormous, I hope. Otherwise, I shall require 25%.
But Mr. Cousins, this is a serious matter of business. You are not bringing any capital into the concern.
What? No capital is my mastery of Greek. No capital is my access to the subtlest thought, the loftiest poetry yet attained by humanity. No capital. My character, my intellect, my life, my career, what Barbara calls my soul. Are these no capital? Say another word, and I double my salary.
Be reasonable.
Mr. Undershaft, you have my terms. Take them or leave them.
Very well, I note your terms. And I offer you half.
Half?
Half.
You call yourself a gentleman, and you offer me half.
I do not call myself a gentleman, but I offer you half.
This to your future partner, your successor, your son-in-law.
You are selling your own soul, Dolly, not mine. Leave me out of the bargain, please.
Come, I will go a step further for Barbara's sake. I will give you 3/5, but that is my last word.
Done.
Done in the eye. Why, I only get 800, you know.
By the way, Mac, I am a classical scholar, not an arithmetical one. Is 3/5 more than half or less?
More, of course.
I would have taken 250. How you can succeed in business when you are willing to pay all that money to a university don who is obviously not worth a junior clerk's wages. Well, what will Lazarus say?
Lazarus is a gentle romantic who cares for nothing but string quartets and stalls at fashionable theatres. He will get the credit of your rapacity in money matters, as he has hitherto had the credit of mine. You are a shark of the first order, Euripides. So much the better for the firm.
Is the bargain closed, Dolly? Does your soul belong to him now?
No, the price is settled. That is all. The real tug-of-war is still to come. What about the moral question?
There is no moral question in the matter at all, Adolphus. You must simply sell cannons and weapons to people whose cause is right and just, and refuse them to foreigners and criminals.
No, none of that. From the moment when you become Andrew Undershaft, you will never do as you please again. Don't come here lusting for power, young man.
If power were my aim, I should not come here for it. You have no power.
None of my own, certainly.
I have more power than you, more will. You do not drive this place. It drives you. And what drives the place?
A will of which I am a part.
Father, do you know what you are saying, or are you laying a snare for my soul?
Don't listen to his metaphysics, Barbara. The place is driven by the most rascally part of society, the money hunters, the pleasure hunters, the military promotion hunters, and he is their slave.
Not necessarily. Remember the armourer's faith. I will take an order from a good man as cheerfully as from a bad one. If you good people prefer preaching and shirking to buying my weapons and fighting the rascals, don't blame me. I can make cannons. I cannot make courage and conviction. Bah! You tire me, Euripides, with your morality mongering.
The fact is, there is a certain amount of tosh about this notion of wickedness. It doesn't work. You must look at facts. Not that I would say a word in favour of anything wrong. But then you see, all sorts of chaps are always doing all sorts of things. And we have to fit them in somehow, don't you know? What I mean is that you can't go cutting everybody, and that's about what it comes to. Perhaps I don't make myself clear.
You are lucidity itself, Charles. Because Andrew is successful and has plenty of money to give to Sarah, you will flatter him and encourage him in his wickedness.
Well, where the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered, don't you know? Eh? What?
Precisely, Biddy.
Don't dare call me Biddy, Charles Lomax. You are a fool. Adolphus Cousins, you are a Jesuit. Stephen, you are a prig. Barbara, you are a lunatic. Andrew, you are a vulgar tradesman. Now you all know my opinion, and my conscience is clear at all events.
My dear, you are the incarnation of morality. Your conscience is clear, and your duty done when you have called everybody names. Come, Euripides, it's getting late, and we all want to get home. Make up your mind.
Understand this, you old demon.
Adolphus!
Let him alone, Biddy. Proceed, Euripides.
You have me in a horrible dilemma. I want Barbara.
Like all young men, you greatly exaggerate the difference between one young woman and another.
Quite true, Dolly.
I also want to avoid being a rascal.
You lust for personal righteousness, for self-approval, for what you call a good conscience, for what Barbara calls salvation, for what I call patronizing people who are not so lucky as yourself. Remember the words of Plato.
Plato! You dare quote Plato to me!
Plato says, my friend, that society cannot be saved until either the professors of Greek take to making gunpowder, or else the makers of gunpowder become professors of Greek.
Oh, tempter, cunning tempter.
Well, my friend, may we expect you here at 6 tomorrow morning?
Not on any account. I will see the whole establishment blown up with its own dynamite before I will get up at 4. My hours are healthy, rational hours. 11 to 5.
Come when you please. Before a week you will come at 6, and stay until I turn you out for the sake of your health. Bilton, my dear, let us leave these two young people to themselves for a moment. I am going to take you through the gun carton shed.
You can't take anything explosive in here, sir.
What do you mean? Are you alluding to me?
No, ma'am. Mr. Undershaft has the other gentleman's matches in his pocket.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Barbara, I am going to accept this offer.
You know that you will have no power and that he has none.
I know it is not for myself alone. I want to make power for the world.
I want to make power for the world too, but it must be spiritual power.
I think all power is spiritual. These cannons will not go off by themselves. I have tried to make spiritual power by teaching Greek, but the world can never be really touched by a dead language and a dead civilization. The power that is made here can be wielded by all men. And now, is it all over between us?
Silly baby Dolly, how could it be?
You were always there to hold me when I needed your embrace. The feeling that you love me makes my heart a holy place. You have never been more distant than the whisper of a prayer, and I can't imagine living life if you weren't there.
I have been blessed on this glorious day.
You were always there to take my hand and help me find my way. The certainty you gave me let me cast my fears away. You have never let me falter or surrender to despair, and I wouldn't want to live my life if you weren't there.
Then you, oh, for my drum.
Do you know what would have happened if you had refused Papa's offer?
I think I do.
I should have given you up and married the man who accepted it.
What?
After all, my dear old mother has more sense than any of you. I felt like her when I saw this place. Felt that I must have it. That never, never, never could I let it go. Only she thought it was the houses and the kitchen ranges and the linen and china, when it was really all the human souls to be saved. Not weak souls in starved bodies, crying with gratitude for a scrap of bread and treacle, but full-fed, quarrelsome, snobbish, uppish creatures, all standing on their little rights and dignities.
We ask
That is where salvation is really wanted. My Father shall never throw it in my teeth again that my converts were bribed with bread. I have got rid of the bribe of bread. I have got rid of the bribe of heaven. Let God's work be done for its own sake, the work he had to create us to do, because it cannot be done except by living men and women.
Then the way of life lies through the factory of death?
Yes, yes, money and gunpowder, freedom and power, unveil the light eternal.
We ask God to hear our prayer.
Did you think my courage would fail me?
No, we pray thee.
Did you believe I could be a deserter?
Unashamed.
God has shown me the path I must take. It is clear to me. It is clear to me.
Pray, let us not to poverty. Let us grant not society. Hold up our souls, for it's mighty. Pray, let us remain unashamed.
No more will I exalt the needy people. Mommy, I'm hungry. For now I see a greater truth I must embrace. When I found holiness in hardship, Mommy, I'm cold. I shared in its disgrace.
They have turned us into beggars, beggars.
I will leave it to the
They have turned
cravens
us
to pretend
into
to put